we're not letting this happen in America. In 1982, the executive director of the United Nations Environmental Program predicted that by the year 2000, climate change would cause a global catastrophe. He said that it will be irreversible, as any nuclear holocaust would be. This is what they said at the United Nations. What happened? Here we are. Another UN official stated in 1989 that within a decade, entire nations could be wiped off the map by global warming. Not happening. You know, it used to be global cooling. If you look back years ago in the 1920s and the 1930s, they said, global cooling will kill the world. We have to do something. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change, because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. It's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign, they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail.
Oh, I understand your view on illegal immigration. It should...
Trump. King Trump dropping bombs there. Welcome back, everybody. Jim Lee, ClimateViewer News, ClimateViewer.com, and connect.climateviewer.com. Go over there, check out all the things. It's been a minute. It's been far too long. I've missed you all so much. Hell has literally frozen over. I cannot even believe that this is happening. I don't think anybody could have predicted this was going to happen, but it did. Bill Gates makes major climate change reversal after years of doomerism. People will be able to live and thrive. Well, Bill, I don't know if you know this, but we've been saying this forever. We've been literally saying this forever. Climate change. You need to get over it. Just get over it. Buddha said that, okay? Just literally. Climate change is dead. Global warming is dead. Oh my God. The fact that he's doing this before COP30, he's like, you know what, guys? I need to just come clean with you. Things I want you to know, everybody to know before COP30. I got some confessing to do. 3 tough truths about climate. I was wrong, AF. I need to back off of this doomerism stuff. Some of the quotes in here are just absolutely priceless. I'm just going to go through a couple, just so you guys know. Everything that I'm about to show, I'm going to just whip through a whole bunch of things that I've been unable to cover because, job-related stuff that I've been doing over the last 2 months. Finally graduated. I'm, got my new job all lined up. And, now I'm able to get back to this, get back to working on the studio. Things are finally, the waters are settled. But this one takes the cake. I got a whole bunch more for you guys in the show. We're going to talk about, how Trump wrecked the U.S. Global Climate Research Program, how that really led to, the Bill Gates, showing up at the White House and everybody going, what the hell is going on here? And then Doug Mastriano writing letters to Pete Hegseth, Donald Trump, and others about geoengineering funding, speculation about where geoengineering funding comes from, the reality of where geoengineering funding comes from, and a pretty big one on how geoengineering, a new science paper that was just released, the geoengineering cannot work. Like, none of the proposals that have been made for the last 20 years I've been covering this, none of them can work. No solid particle stratospheric aerosol injection scheme can work because physics. Like, you didn't do your math, you didn't do your homework. All of these all of these ideas are stupid. So the collapse of the global warming narrative, fear porn pushing agenda, brought to you by Bill Gates, which obviously you got to question the motivation there. But regardless, I think that he realizes that, you know, the control of the narrative is falling apart, and that's a good thing. And then finally, we're going to go to a little update on Stardust Labs, the Israeli geoengineering startup, and how it's making the news finally. I covered this in January, I want to say 2020, January 14th, 2025, and it's making the news, so we're going to cover that as well. All that and more, so we're going to get into it. If you guys are new here, if you haven't been here before, please go to connect.climateviewer.com. Hit the subscribe on the SUBSTACK newsletter. All of the links from this video will be provided in an article probably in the next day or two at the very latest. And you can also donate at the bottom of the page. I'm still working on the studio. For those who don't know, Jeff, my good friend, the meteorologist, took a train all the way from California to come here, 5 days on a train to come here and help me work on my studio. So construction is underway. His train literally got hit by a pine tree and then had to be dragged for a full day. Everything that could have gone wrong on that weekend did, but that's a story for another time. Let's get into the stories and just some of the great quotes in here. Straight from Bill Gates' mouth. Although climate change will have serious consequences, particularly for those of the poorest countries, it will not lead to humanity's demise. People will be able to live and thrive in most places on Earth for the foreseeable future. Bro, I mean, you gotta know that people in the whole climate cult are peeing their pants right now. I mean, they've gotta be peeing their pants right now. You know, Gates, who just 4 years ago authored a book titled How to Avoid Climate Disaster, and once said climate change could be worse than COVID-19 pandemic, now argues, quote, we should measure our success by the impact on human welfare more than our impact on global temperatures. The Control-Alt-Delete-Reset is a stark departure from his previous assertions. You think? Quote, we will be one of the greatest challenges humans have ever taken on, greater than landing on the moon, greater than eradicating smallpox, even greater than putting a computer on every desk. Anyway, moving on. Some of these are just like outrageously cool that he would say it. Like, I've said this before 100 times. Cold kills more people than heat. We can mitigate heat. No matter how hot the world gets, blah, 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 we'll be fine. But to hear it coming out of, you know, Bill Gates' mouth is insane. I mean, pinch me. I can't believe this is going on. Astonishingly, Gates goes on so far as to point out that cold, not heat, is far greater threat to humanity, writing, surprisingly, excessive cold is far deadlier, killing nearly 10 times more people than every year than heat does. Well, no joke. He even noted that some of the ways obsessive focus on lowering greenhouse gas emissions has negatively impacted the very groups of climate alarmists have warned would suffer most due to rising global temperatures. And of course, they all look really stupid. A few years ago, a government on one low-income country set out to cut emissions by banning synthetic fertilizers. Farmers' yields plummeted. There was less food available and prices skyrocketed. The country was hit by a crisis because the government valued reducing emissions above other important things. You mean like eating? Like food? Yeah, that's how crazy things have gone. So, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. We'll see how this all works out in the end. But literally, his article here is so long that my little cursor over here on the side is tiny. I mean, it is freaking huge. Climate change is a serious problem, but it will not be the end of civilization. Truth number 1. and it just goes on and on. And he's quoting pretty accurate numbers, which is insane that this is even happening. I think it's absolutely fascinating. But we knew all this. I've been sharing this with you guys forever. It's co2coalition.org/facts. And if you really want to know the facts about climate change, it's plant food. The more it increases, the less warming it actually does. And it's been warmer, much higher, in the past. All of these things. If you don't know these basic facts about CO2 and global warming and temperatures and all of the BS that's been going on, go to co2coalition.org/facts. And one of the gentlemen who is the founder of this is Dr. William Happer, who just recently, and there's him right there, was on the Joe Rogan Experience. Is it a coincidence that 12 days ago that Dr. William Happer was on there October 21st? And what's the date on this article? Just curious. October 28th. Oh no. So you mean Dr. William Happer goes on and Richard Lindzen goes on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's already got 1 million views. And just less than a week later, you got Bill Gates basically going, you know what? Maybe we are talking a little crazy. We need to back up off this. There's no date directly on this when he posted it, but it says 6 days ago. Okay, so there you go. Joe Rogan, 12 days ago, 6 days ago, he admits that Trump was right. He did cancel the U.S. Global Climate Change Research Program. Now, of course, this made the climate cult go bonkers. And then he even deleted globalchange.gov. I was clapping, I was clapping so much when this happened. I was laughing so hard, I almost lost a testicle. But anyway, I think that this is a phenomenal move in the right direction. So it seems like common sense is starting to become common again. And I don't want to get, over my skis. I don't want to get, too excited about this. But it looks like we're headed in the right direction. And that is phenomenal. Link in the chat provided by Bettina from Geoengineering Free Canada. Click that link, bookmark that link, know that link, memorize that stuff. That way you can take your favorite climate cultist and go, not only are these all facts, but even Bill Gates is now saying the world's not going to end because of climate change. We've known that this entire time. Which brings us to our next topic. Doug Mastriano and his geoengineering claims. We'll just take a peek at that. So over on Sayer G's Substack, for those who don't know him, Green Med Info, Global Wellness Forum, written by Sayer G, Global Wellness Forum, and Amy Vieja McBride. I hope I pronounced your middle name right. But anyway, Amy McBride. They're writing this. It's time to end the poisoning of our planet. We demand that weather modification programs end. Stop all federal appropriation spendings on these programs. I'm with that. I'm for it. Okay. I'm totally for banning geoengineering, banning, weather modification activities. However, I do think there is an unrealistic expectation that, and an outsized expectation that this is all from the U.S. government. The vast majority, better than 98% of weather modification projects are private corporations accepting money from either local governments, local municipalities, counties, literally, or individuals, farmers. You would not believe. So there's a little disconnect there. But anyway, this is really focusing on geoengineering. And what's not being said here is that it's really focusing on chemtrails. So, obviously a lot of people are conflating chemtrails and geoengineering. They still don't get it. That's why I created chemtrailfacts.com. Chemtrailfacts.com, the only place that you can literally get most of the story, like almost all of the story in one place. And this page is only 5% complete. There is so much more coming to this, but you need to know the difference between geoengineering, weather modification, actual pumps that spray poison, sounding rockets, weather warfare, and contrails. Because whether you like it or not, contrails are real. And what people believe versus what is reality, how contrail formation works, these are undisputable facts. Physics don't care about your feelings. So not understanding these, sticking to the Dane Wigington narrative, has led to what I'm about to describe to you. So just a clarification there. And, claiming that, these pumps and pipes are retrofitted nozzles. Oh yeah, this is straight from the Deming. They're not. They are, actually pylon drains. That is an Airbus plane. There's the pylon drain. Here is directly from the manufacturer's mechanics manual. Also going, these are pylon drains. See them right there? Those pipes were made by the manufacturer. They are not retrofitted nozzles. That is the only evidence you have, Dane. Stop lying to people. We agree that geoengineering should be banned. It's a bad thing. But the way you're going about it is really screwing everybody up, even Doug Mastriano. So to that point, Sayers really laid this out well. I'm going to link to this in my Substack post so you guys will all be able to read it. I'm going to drop it in the live chat for everybody participating now. You guys can bookmark it. But basically it comes down to, 3 separate tweets that he wrote, including the letter he wrote, basically saying that in fiscal year 2023, and then the then Department of Defense, now Department of War, requested $3.1 billion in climate investments, a portion of which supported SRM-related research and testing. And then there's a 1 here. Now, in none of the screenshots I've seen, the 1, which is a reference note, is available. So I have no idea what the heck they're talking about there, where he got that information from. I'm assuming he's talking about the Biden solar radiation modification report, but that remains to be seen. This money would have been better spent on military readiness, rebuilding our airports, fixing our highways, and veteran care. Totally agree on that. But, saying that solar radiation modification activities conducted by the Department of War, DARPA, NOAA, and other federal agencies, let's be real. I want to be very clear. There's no evidence of that. If there was evidence that that they were deploying geoengineering, SRM, solar radiation management or modification, now that they call it that, stratospheric aerosol injection, I'd be the first to show you those Freedom of Information Act requests. Nobody has ever gotten them. So anyway, 3 separate tweets from Doug Mastriano right up here. My letter to President Trump requesting the end of all SRM funding. And you can see, 1.2 million views. My letter to Pete Hegseth with 874,000 views, and my letter to Russ Voigt, director of the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, to cease funding for environmentally dangerous Biden-era legacy program. And only 14,000 views on that because people were like, who the hell is Russ Voigt? So anyway, Doug Mastriano, hey, he's got 254,000 followers. He's, Pennsylvania senator. Of course, a lot of people got a lot of traction on X. So, a lot of people are paying attention to this. But the bottom line is, when you're talking about who is funding geoengineering, because this is really the fundamental question, right? Who is funding geoengineering? Is it occurring? Where is the funding going? Is it going towards research? Is it going towards laboratory experiments? Or is it going towards field experiments? This matters. So if you go to weathermodificationhistory.com/geoengineering, I've had this information up since 2014, revised it in 2022. And you can see right here, I'm going to scroll down. You click on who's funding geoengineering research, governance and deployment. And you'll see that these are the main characters: David Keith, Ken Caldera, Ben Kravitz, Alan Robach. Who was paying for the most money in 2014? The National Science Foundation. It's not mentioned in any of these. It's not mentioned in any of the discussions going on. NASA, European Commission, NERC, Fund for Innovation, Climate and Energy Research, FICER. That's Bill Gates right there. So that was 2014. And these are the authors that were writing about it: Ken Caldera, Alan Robach, Ben Kravitz, Peter Irvine, David Keith. Most prominent authors on the subject, 2014. So, and you can see this is mapping the landscape of climate engineering. But then I've got a much bigger infographic. Now, this is updated with information from 2018 and 2022. And this is what it looks like today with open philanthropy. For those who don't know that, that's open, society. It's George Soros. Then you got the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative, which is now degrees.ngo. The National Science Foundation, still rock solid down here. Bill Gates with his Gates Ventures and Pfizer. All of this information is available right there on weathermodificationhistory.com/geoengineering. So this has been available for a while. But then I'm on X, and I'm looking at somebody else who's talking about this, and it goes by the name Clayton J. Baker, MD. According to TrackXN, I'm going to say traction.com, the top investors in geoengineering are at HHS and OSTI, Department of Energy. So he asked some AI thing that tracks companies, and it said, who are the top investors in geoengineering companies in North America? The top investors in geoengineering companies in North America by number of investments are OSTI and HHS. That's HHS, Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So you mean to tell me that RFK Jr. is running the HHS, and HHS is funding geoengineering programs? Company. This says specifically companies, which is, I think, a really weird way to put it. So my pushback to him was, no offense, but I'm calling BS. If you have access to the query results, then surely you can provide evidence that backs the claim. Here are the real numbers. So what are the real numbers? So we're going to go to SRM 360 to actually see who is funding geoengineering. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, let's make it clear, if Bill Gates is now saying that, we're going to be fine for the foreseeable future, global warming is not as bad as we said it was, we need to focus on human flourishing, impoverished nations, food, water, that sort of stuff. I'm sure he's going to throw vaccines in there because that's just what Bill Gates going to Bill Gates, right? Then how do we have a justification for solar radiation management at all? Or is he saying, look, we should tone down the rhetoric on all this because we can handle these things with technologies and mitigate? So is he actually saying let's not be so doomer about geoengineering, because we can use geoengineering to fix this problem. You always got to read between the lines. So I'm still going to ride that fence on how that's going to actually shake out. But we shall see. That's where I'm going to land on that. It remains to be seen, what Bill's actually planning here. But SRM funding overview, and it goes like this: money entering the SRM field annually. These are in millions of dollars. So you can see back in 2007, we're talking, somewhere around like 3 million, 4 million, finally up to $5 million each a year in 2010, jumped up to around 17 million in 2012. And you can see the chart here, finally ending above $30 million worth of investment into geoengineering research and development. That does not mean necessarily deployment. So there's a real big gap there between people's understanding of what these funding numbers actually mean. Not making excuses for them, just being realistic. So by sector: government, philanthropic, commercial. So philanthropic, in the last year, rich, wealthy people donating money towards geoengineering skyrocketed in 24. Commercial, flat, almost completely flat until right here in 2023. And all of that, almost all, because Make Sunsets is just a tiny blip on the radar. This is all Stardust Labs. And by the way, this was $15 million of initial startup money. We're going to get into that in just a minute. Towards the end of the video, we're almost there. But as far as companies, commercial investment in geoengineering, there is only 2 companies. It is Make Sunsets and Stardust Labs. There's no evidence of any other company on the planet that's doing this. There was Planktos, which was Russ George, who did ocean iron fertilization. They called him the rogue geoengineer. It was the Haida Salmon Restoration Project. We're going to throw that one back in the ocean where it belongs, because A, he's not doing it anymore. B, he said that he was sprinkling iron to bring the fish back that the commercial fishing was stealing from the island, but they called it ocean iron fertilization geoengineering because it caused a phytoplankton bloom. We're going to leave all that for a side story. So governmental investment in geoengineering, still kind of up and down. 15 million, 12 million right about here. That's literally like no money. That's like no money, okay? When we're talking about government spending, anything south of $1 billion is like, here's $5, man. I mean, it's literally like handing, your local, vagrant, here's $5, man. Yeah, go do your thing, dog. That's nothing burger. We're nowhere even close to the 3-something billion that Mastriano's talking about. So I'm just curious to see how that, where he's getting that information from. But I don't see it. Anyway, there's other information on this page. I'm not going to go into it, but you can see the funding overview here. If you're in live chat, you're getting the links tonight. Everybody else, it will be on my Substack. All of these references will be available. But here's where it really gets interesting, because they have this thing called the SRM funding tracker. It was published in May of 2025. The only thing that I notice about this, right now we're sitting at $217 million total. Cumulative total of SRM funding 2007 through 2024 in millions of dollars of 2024 USD. So $217 million from 2007 to present. We're still nowhere near $1 billion. This is not a lot of money. The weather modification industry, cloud seeding, has more money in it than this. Just putting things into perspective. So, what does it actually look like? So you can explore this chart, and there's two ways to look at it. Who gave the money or who received the money? So who gave the money? Who's actually, is it actually HHS and DOE like they said? State of Queensland government. Let's go full screen on this real quick, and I'll see if I can make it a little bigger. It's going to be kind of hard too because of the way they've set this chart up. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to zoom that much. Anyway, AWZ Ventures, they invested in Stardust Labs, Stardust Solutions, same thing. State of Queensland government, Australian national government, these are the largest ones. German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, Open Philanthropy, Quadrature Climate Foundation, LAD Climate Fund. Down here we got Bill Gates. Wonder how much of that money's still going to go to that. Individual funders for HSGCRP, that is Harvard Solar Geoengineering Research Program. Yeah, you got to be an OG like me to know these acronyms, brothers and sisters. NOAA. So sorry to Clayton Baker, who said, HHS and DOE. NOAA is the largest funder of geoengineering research in the United States currently. National Science Foundation is less than, because the bigger the circle here, the more money they gave. And then up here you have Norwegian Research Council. Now let's flip the script. Who got the money? So who got the money? Reef Trust Partnership. So when we were talking earlier about Queensland and Australia, this is the Great Barrier Reef Restoration Project. This is where they're doing and have been since 2018 doing marine cloud brightening, geoengineering field deployments. They're actually doing. This isn't just a test. They are using boats to inject sea salt into marine stratocumulus over the Great Barrier Reef. This has been funded since 2018 and ongoing. Nobody talks about it. Everybody made a big fit about Silver Lining doing a marine cloud brightening experiment on the USS Hornet in the San Francisco Bay. Nobody's talking about they're actually doing marine cloud brightening off the east coast of Australia over the Great Barrier Reef, and have been since 2018. And that's Southern Cross University's doing it. So you don't know. You just don't know. Like the fail train of people talking about geoengineering but know nothing about it is insane. So I'm back. Guess who's back? Back again. Jimmy's back. Tell your friends. Guess who's back? Guess who's back? Anyway, it feels so empty without me. I swear I need to be here for you guys. Stardust Solutions. That's Stardust Labs. At the time this was reported, Stardust Labs had $15 million worth of investment from two companies. I covered that before anybody in January last year. We're going to talk about that in a minute. NASA received funds. Rutgers University, University Corporation for Atmospheric Research, that's UCAR out of Boulder, Colorado. Silver Lining, that's silverlining.ngo, that's Kelly Wasner. And they are, they work with Pacific Northwest National Labs and a couple other, entities to do marine cloud brightening experiments, and they want to do them in America, off the coast of America. They're the ones who did the San Francisco Bay thing. The Degrees Initiative, formerly known as the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative, degrees.ngo, that's the website, degrees.ngo. Fund for Innovative Climate Energy Research, that's Pfizer, that's Bill Gates. So yes, if you click on it, it's going to say Bill Gates gave money to Pfizer, and Pfizer gave some of that money to Rutgers, and the Degrees Initiative gave money to Pfizer. So Bill Gates gave a little bit of money, and now Degrees has gave a lot of money to Pfizer, who gives it to researchers. And when you click on any of these, then there's an overview which tells you all about it. Total funding granted, $100,000 unknown. Granted funding 2. Total funding received, $9 million estimated. Received funding from Bill Gates. So you can, I'm covering it up as I'm scrolling on it. So you can actually see all of the information as you scroll into these and you click on them. So when I come up here and I go to, like, say, Stardust Labs, you'll see that AWZ Ventures and Solar Edge invested in Stardust Labs. And it'll tell you all about it. $15 million. Who they get the money from. These are the kinds of things that, 2023 DoD appropriations has zero mention of SRM or geoengineering. I fully agree with you, misinformation. That's why I'm saying, like, the whole Doug Mastriano thing, it just reeks of ignorance. Climate, research does not mean geoengineering deployment. The world doesn't work that way. You can't just be that simple about things. So anyway, if you go to these, like Harvard, I mean, look at the crow's nest foundation. I was going to say, look at the crow's nest around it of different, individual funders. Bill Gates funds that as well. If you click on Bill Gates, you can just see, like he's really big into Pfizer and the Harvard Solar Geoengineering Research Program, which previously funded David Keith's experiment, SCOPEX, which David Keith canceled. So anyway, I could spend the next hour just going through this silver lining. Now we're talking about a spider's web of marine cloud brightening information of who all's involved and all that. And quadrature, you got to read about them. Like, the fact that it's just hitting me that, like, I know way too much about this. And the fact that, like, nobody else knows this stuff drives me insane. Like, you can lead a horse to water. You can paste the links all you want. You can tell people, man, go do your research. It's all available there. And then after you've done that, then go look for, where's the lies? Where's the CIA secret planes? Where's all of that stuff? But until you've actually looked at what's publicly available and understand it, don't go writing letters to Trump and Pete Hegseth demanding that the DOD is somehow involved in doing geoengineering because Biden threw $3.1 billion towards climate investments. I mean, for all we know, that could be something as simple as, could you make the military greener? I mean, we've already seen what they did with the whole CRT and all that stuff, in the military, and Pete Hegseth, really raised a lot of cane about that. But let's be real, like, just trying to be realistic about all this. Anyway, I guess we're going to move on from there, because like I said, I could spend all day just playing with this and showing you, how much information is already out there about geoengineering, research, development, and who's paying for what. And this is enough to keep you going for a very long time, just chasing the rabbit holes of, who's doing what, where and when and why. And almost all of the rest of it is on, like, map.geoengineering monitor. You can just come here. I didn't even have this one prepped up, but I'll just throw it in for those who want to know. Just go there. Geoengineeringmonitor.org. Map.geoengineeringmonitor.org. And you can literally just go ahead and turn off the weather modification projects. Let's just go filter all. Clear weather modification projects. Now we're just looking at geoengineering projects. Clear off greenhouse gas removal. And these are all, and that's other. So then when we get down to just solar radiation management projects, we can see 2 here, 1 here. That's SCOPEX. 1 here, make sunsets. 5 here, 2 here. and the ones I told you about already, like the marine cloud brightening stuff going on here. MCB trial. So you can actually come in here and read all about it. And all the references are there. You can learn all about it. You know, Great Barrier Restoration, Great Barrier Reef Restoration.org/home, and read all about it. I mean, the information is there. So you can Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program. We're going to spray the sky and all that. And, you know, I mean, they give you all the references. Can artificially altered clouds save the Great Barrier Reef? Do your homework. It's free. And you don't have to, you know, rely on people writing things on on X. You know, I wrote a letter to the government, and trust me, bro, I know what I'm talking about because I'm a senator. No. I've had very few conversations with senators. I mean, strike that. I've had 0 conversations with senators. State senators, state legislators, I've talked to probably about 15 of them. Of them, I would say maybe 2 or 3 actually understood the words coming out of my mouth or cared. So, no, I'm going to tell you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Doug Mastriano, and any of these other, you know, people in Congress and the Senate, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And they probably never will, because they're never going to talk to a guy like me. And that's because they are willfully ignorant, and they're basically pandering. If you haven't figured out by now, they're pandering. You don't understand politics. Anyway, that's my map PRN for today. Go over to map.geoengineeringmonitor.org. I fully approve of this message by the ETC group, Heinrich Boll Stiftung, and Biofuels Watch combined to make this beautiful thing happen. Now to my good friend John Fleetwood on johnfleetwood.com. Geoengineering fails on every level. Technical, economic, and political, says Columbia University scientist. This is the paper, like the shot heard round the freaking world. This paper has literally blown heads apart. They are basically saying here that the idea of injecting solid particles into the stratosphere to block sunlight cannot work. It is physically impossible. It is fundamentally wrong. None of it works. The logistics of it doesn't work. The money that would be required to pull it off doesn't work. The constraints that it would put on other economic industries would basically strangle the entire world. Everything about this is wrong. If you don't read anything else about geoengineering, you got to read this paper. And you definitely, if you want to save yourself a whole lot of time and strain, let me get that query off the end of there, and then I'm going to share it with you guys. My good friend John Fleetwood wrote an excellent article on this. And I'm going to link to all of this on my Substack, including Sergey's post. Everything you've seen so far tonight will be on there. So that means that I need to duplicate this real quick. Hold on one second. A little bit of work needs to be done here so that I can remember. I got to put the funding tracker in there. I'm going to bookmark all this stuff at the end so that I can put it up on there. So he basically breaks it down for you that, you know, where's it at? The case against climate change alarmism. Oh, well, we kind of covered that here at the beginning with Bill Gates, you know, really backing off everything. Now, of course, this was written just prior to Bill Gates having his come to Jesus moment and admitting the truth. But the study reads, the bulk of SAI modeling literature focuses on optimal deployment scenarios in which let me just get off the screen here. in which physical, practical constraints, microphysical, geopolitical, and economic are not considered. Here we explore several key micro and macroscopic aspects of deployment that may directly increase risk and the degree to which technical and governance approaches could be levied to offset it. We find that the risk and design space for stratospheric aerosol injection may be considerably constrained by factors like supply chain and governance. Engineering failures. Due to the solid aerosol candidates' high density and small primary particle size, these are classified as Geldart Group C hard to fluidize materials, meaning they will resist flowing along with gas and primary particles, increase instead of forming large several microns agglomerates. Cohesion intermolecular forces tend to hold primary particles together. As the primary particle sizes decrease, the cohesive forces tends to decrease less significantly than opposing forces in gas flow, resulting in agglomerates that resist breakup. Translation: if you spray a bunch of solid freaking particles into the stratosphere, they're going to stick together. They're not going to spread out. So this idea that they could use aluminum, titanium, diamond dust, and calcium. Those are the four major ones. I'll reorder them now, because now their order of importance has gone like this. It's always been sulfur. Sulfur has always been number one. Why? Volcanoes. Okay, sulfur, sulfuric acid, sulfur dioxide. It always goes back to that. That's their number one choice. But it has so many problems. A, it kills people. B, it destroys ozone. Then there's all the other chemistry problems that are associated with sulfur. So they've been trying to find some kind of solid particle that they could loft into the stratosphere at 60 to 90,000 feet to reflect sunlight. The problem is that if you spray these powdered chemicals, these particles, into the stratosphere, they will agglomerate. They will coagulate. They will come together and they will stick together and they will fuse together. And that's counterproductive to what they want to do. They want to get an even flow, man. Want that even flow. But it's not going to do that because it coagulates. Oh my God. Well, they just really didn't understand that at all. And that's just basic ass science. Something as basic as that, they do not understand. You know, there's a lot more here. I'm not going to go on ad nauseum. I'm going to leave it for you guys to read for yourself, but I'm just going to focus on this one thing here. Generally, larger aggregates scatter less efficiently as expected for increasing optical size parameters. Fractal dimension appears to play a role in aggregate scattering efficiency. Translation: if it all sticks together and it doesn't spread out and, you know, it's not very homogeneous across the stratosphere, then guess what? It's going to reflect less sunlight. And that was the whole point of doing it in the first place. So if you can't actually get it to do that, then it does not work. Figure that one out, geoengineering industry. First of all, Bill Gates is saying, climate change isn't as bad as global warming is not as bad as we said it was. We were kind of, you know, a little over our, you know, skis. We were coming real hard with the fear porn. But in reality, you know, even the geoengineering ideas that I've been funding, they will not work. They will not work. They cannot work. Yes, what Stella said. So dumb. So dumb. Just everything about this is so dumb. So anyway, absolutely phenomenal paper. It is, you know, just a banger of a paper. I read the whole paper. I don't expect you to, because it's very nerd heavy. But again, candidates include calcium carbonate, aluminum, alpha aluminum rutile, and anastase titanium oxide, cubic zirconium, diamond. I didn't just make this stuff up. This is actually what they're talking about. So of these four candidates, like they stick together. They don't spread out. Like, what the hell are you guys even talking about? It doesn't work. And that's a big problem. So finally, back in January, I covered this company, Israeli Stardust Labs and Geoengineering Governance. That's right, Stardust Geoengineering. It's got Israel inside, for profit, for governments. You guys should probably go back and read that, because I was the first to really break this story about these guys. Way ahead of the curve. If you're hanging with me, you're going to be way ahead of the curve, because guess what? I know all the people, and all the people tell me everything. And most of these geoengineers, I got their phone numbers. Same with weather modification people. I mean, Augustus Dorico was accused of flooding Texas on the 4th, and on the 5th at 10 p.m., I was the first interview he did. Why? Because I had his phone number. I literally was texting him about, like, you're getting ratioed on freaking X, bro. You want to talk about this or not? So stick with me, bro. Bros and brosettes, please support the channel. I'm desperately working to get that studio built. I'm probably going to be working on this all the way up to tax time, because, just honestly, the amount of money it's going to take to build this studio is way more than I expected. And the time investment and all that, whatever I don't get in donations, I'm going to end up just having to use my tax money to do it. But your donations would be greatly appreciated. Help me keeping, you up to date with the news, sans all the fear and all the speculation, just the facts, and that's the way it should be. So over here, I'm showing you guys where Stardust Labs, businesses are, both in right here. This is in Palo Alto, California, and this is in Israel, Rehovot. I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, you can click on it and it'll take you straight to Google Maps, and then actually show you the building, and then you can look on it, because I'm that hacker guy. That's how I roll. So I went and I didn't dox them. That's a mean word. I just got their information. Okay, that's all, and all the information about them. Well, anyway, people were, I got into a bit of a tiff with some people on X about this company, and I said, well, you don't understand how Stardust Labs work. Stardust Labs is actually the first company that is literally doing geoengineering for profit. They have not started actually deploying geoengineering yet, but they already are taking investments. And at the time I wrote this article in January, they had the two investors. It was $15 million. Well, that's changed. Now they're up to $60 million. And their business model is geoengineering is illegal. And I know that most people don't believe this, because you've watched silly documentaries, sci-fi flicks like The Deming, and you believe that geoengineering is happening everywhere all the time. But the reality of the situation is that if geoengineering were occurring all over the world all the time, we would know that. It would be obvious at this point. So anyway, Stardust Labs is a private company that is setting itself up as a defense contractor to deploy geoengineering through government contracts. They have not received those contracts to deploy. They have not been given the green light. But for anybody who doubts it, I wrote that in January, and then undark.org did a follow-up on this, and they actually covered it for March 17th. And it says right here, few outsiders have gotten a glimpse of Stardust's plans, and the company has not publicly released details about its technology, its business model, or exactly who works at its company. I know that. Like, bro, like, I actually know that stuff. But anyway, but the company appears to be positioning itself to develop and sell proprietary geoengineering technology to governments that are considering making modifications to the global climate acting like a kind of defense contractor for climate alteration. Let that sink in. This is not conspiracy. This is not speculation. This is a real company getting real money, setting itself up for the green light from the governments to deploy solar radiation management, stratospheric aerosol injection. Flash forward to today. Politico. Global cooling startup raised $60 million to test sun-reflecting technology. Published October 24th, 2025. So this is new. Wrong buttons. This is new, clearly. Hopefully there's some fresh information in here. There is. So, once outlandish idea for reversing global warming took a major step towards reality Friday when Israeli-U.S. startup Stardust Solutions, let me clarify, Stardust Solutions, Stardust Labs, their company's called Stardust Labs Limited. According to the LinkedIn's, okay? So if you go to my original article, I was going back and forth because I'd heard it referred to as Stardust Labs and Stardust Solutions. I don't know which one they're going by today, but if you click on this, it just simply says Stardust. So this is their website, and the website is stardust-initiative.com. So now we got a third term: Stardust Labs, Stardust Solutions, Stardust Initiative. I don't know. Keep bouncing the ball around, guys, till you figure it out. But it actually did say Stardust Labs on here at the time. I could go to the Wayback Machine right now probably and show it to you, but let's not get into the weeds. Anyway, so back to this. Stardust Solution announced that the largest ever fundraising round of the company aims to cool the earth by spraying particles into the atmosphere. It plans to limit the sun's heat rays. Raised $60 million from a broad coalition of investors of Silicon Valley to the Agnelli family and Italian industry dynasty. Anyway, so what's the what in here? What really matters? There's a couple of new notes in here. Not much, but what they did mention specifically was April. The startup would use the money it has raised to begin, quote, outdoor contained experiments as soon as April. Those tests would be release the company's reflective particles inside a modified plane flying about 11 miles, 18 kilometers above sea level. So for those who need this really explained, the idea Yedvab, that's one of the founders of the company, explained is that instead of displacing the particles out to the stratosphere and start following them, to do the other way around, to suck air from the stratosphere into the cockpit to conduct in situ experiments without dispersing, essentially. So literally right now, what they're talking about doing is instead, and this is the same with the UK's ARIA project, where everybody lost their crap on all the social medias, even, so far as like Ben Davidson from Suspicious Observers or Space Weather News, whatever the hell he's calling it now, saying, okay, green light, everybody needs to shoot down airplanes. Stop this at any cost. The UK ARIA experiment was literally going to float a balloon into the stratosphere that had the calcium, titanium, aluminum, and diamond dust, and it wasn't going to spray any of it out at all. That this is still ongoing. So UK's ARIA geoengineering project, they're not spraying any chemicals into the stratosphere. They're simply going to carry them up there because they know people are literally livid about geoengineering, SAI. But people still lost their mind. They didn't read anything. They didn't wait for, any of the emissions. They're doing like 10 marine cloud brightening projects and then also spraying a bunch of water onto a glacier, but they're going to float a balloon up into the air. They're not going to spray anything. They're just going to see how the stratosphere itself affects the chemicals in bags tethered to a balloon. Not what you've been told. Similarly, here, even with Stardust Labs, they're not going to spray the chemicals into the stratosphere, because then they'd have to, go find a bunch of, really fine-tuned equipment and see, how much it disperses and how much sunlight's actually blocked. Instead, they're going to fly up into the stratosphere and then let stratospheric air, for lack of better words, into the cockpit, and then release their chemicals inside the cockpit to do the measuring inside the plane. So that's really the big takeaway from this. That's where we're at with Stardust Labs right now. They are setting themselves up as a defense contractor for geoengineering for governments. And by April, they plan to actually do some tests. Stardust new investors include U.S. firms Future Positive, Future Ventures, Neverlift Ventures, Starlight Ventures, Nebular, and Lauder Partners, as well as British groups Attestor, Kindred Capital, and Orion Global Advisors. Berlin's Earth.now also joined fundraising round. So shout out to SRM 360. Update your funding for Stardust Labs, because I'd like to see that on there as soon as possible. Let's see here. Where were we? Funds given. Where is the Stardust? Anyway, I thought I had it on commercials. Anyway, this damn page stopped working. Okay, there we go. So here's Stardust Solutions. So now they need to add all of these other companies. They're not at 15 million. They're at 60 million. They need to update their chart. I'll send them an email reminding them to do so. But regardless, this is where we're at. They now have $60 million. They're going to test in April. They're going to do it inside their plane. And that is the rest of the story. So to recap, Bill Gates says global warming. We were a bit overreacting. Maybe. Possibly. What does he actually mean by this? Does he actually say, well, you know what, we should focus on the bigger problems of actually dealing with people who are dying? Is he being genuine? I don't know. It's a very lengthy blog post by him. You read it, you be the judge. Either way, hell just froze over, because nobody saw this coming, including myself. So what does this mean? Only time will actually tell. CO2coalition.org, William Happer, Dr. Willie Soon, Dr. Judith Curry, the voices of reason who've been saying this for decades now. The geoengineering, that global warming is overblown, is unrealistic, and is just about making money. Apparently, and this is just my personal opinion, my gut tells me Bill's found a better way to make money. And when I was asked about this on X, I said, well, one of the biggest things that's driving the economy right now is AI. And AI is extremely power hungry. And in an interview that Bill Gates did about his 360 reversal, he said, well, at least Trump didn't cut the funding for nuclear energy. So when you recognize that the world's going towards these huge AI farms, they require massive amounts of power that green energy will never be able to provide. Now you're starting to see, where's that money going? Where's that cha-ching going? So I honestly think that though this is, still a win's a win, we're going to have to look to see a little deeper what Bill's real motivations are. Is he being completely open and transparent in his blog post, or is there something more to the story? Time will tell. Same with Doug Mastriano's letter to Pete Hegseth and Trump, and all those encouraging others to write Trump as well. Just because he was right about global warming, saying it to the face of the UN and everybody, and shutting down all these stupid global warming programs in the U.S., doesn't mean he's going to listen to anybody on geoengineering. Really haven't got a straight answer out of anybody on that, including RFK. Has RFK stopped chemtrails? No, he has not. Has anything changed whatsoever? Not really. The only thing that's changed is there is a little bit of a narrative shift, and I'm enjoying it for the moment. I'm glad I was able to come back on and make this video tonight. All the details will be provided. Once again, go to connect.climateviewer.com. Please subscribe to the Substack newsletter. It's free. If you're feeling benevolent, become a paid subscriber. All of that money will go to building a YouTube studio for me to get out of my bedroom, to be able to make more content. And I will be starting a podcast when that studio is completed. I already have a name for it, and it will be available on the podcasting platforms. So not just these videos. We want to get the message out to as many people in many different ways as possible. Do once a week show, maybe even more. Totally depends on, how things work out, how things shake out. But your support is needed now more than ever. Go to connect.climateviewer.com. Bottom of the screen, you can subscribe there, and also join our Telegram chat, where you can, get in on the fun. Just get in on the fun. You want to be part of the conversation. If you've got news, you want to share it with us, you want it to show up in these videos. A lot of the stuff that's coming up in these videos is coming directly from the beautiful people in our Climate Viewer chat. And finally, I would be remiss if I did not mention the beautiful Blue Book by Stella Q and Bettina and Dan Fournier, Where Has Our Blue Skies Gone? You can find that at stellaq.com.au, a children's book on chemtrails. If you want to educate your children on this topic and you want to do it with a fun narrative and still make it simple and be able to talk about it afterwards and really explore it with your children, I highly suggest this book. I get nothing from selling this book, and from what I understand, Stella Q, who's in chat right now, you guys can see her, and Geoengineering Free Canada, they are the writers. That's Stella Q and Bettina Engler. They're both in chat right now, as you can see. Go over to stellaq.com.au and order the book. It's really cheap. It's beautifully printed. Stella did all the artwork herself. Absolutely phenomenal. I make nothing from this. This is their thing. Both are admins in my Telegram chat. You can come meet them yourself and get into a nice friendly argument if you like, or ask some questions, because everybody in the chat's pretty friendly and helpful. And that's on Telegram. It's t.me/ClimateViewer chat, but you can just go to connect.climateviewer.com, join the chat. So thank you to everybody who stuck through to the end of this video. It's been a while. I wanted to catch up on some of the major things that have happened. I think we got through it pretty quickly. I'm right at my hour mark. I'm a little bit over, but still constantly moving. There's at least 20 things that I wanted to include. There were updates in the last 2 months, but there's only so much time, man. I mean, you got Governor Gavin Newsom announcing that he's going to be doing biofuels and producing 200 million gallons of jet biofuels to combat climate change. But that's a story for another time. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button if you haven't. More than 75% of the viewers on my YouTube, my X, and my Rumble channel are watching these videos and are not subscribers. So hitting subscribe is free. So please do that. Please share this video with other people. And remember that with great information comes great power, and with great power comes great responsibility. Please use the information in this video, on my website, to just basically attack ideas, not people. Okay, we've had enough vitriol. We've had enough tribalism. Let's try to be nicer to each other, including myself. I'm going to try to do a much better job about being a Christian man that I want to be while I'm having these discussions. So, to all those I've offended in the past or said really mean things, I ask for your forgiveness. For those who have criticized me for not being more understanding of alternative viewpoints, hey man, I'm human. But I am going to refrain from the cursing. I am going to try to be a little bit nicer about this. And I too will attack ideas, not people. I hope you will too. Let's keep it going into the new year. And I'm looking forward to the next video. See you on that, guys. Have a great week. If this video resonates with you, leave me a comment because I love hearing from y'all. First time here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell. Yeah! Remember, it would be impossible for me to do this without your support, so please join my Patreon or buy me a coffee on PayPal. And always, attack ideas, not people.